When thinking of the Disney distribution labels, everyone is obviously familiar with the main Walt Disney Pictures banner, which releases family films. Touchstone Pictures is fondly remembered for releasing movies aimed at older audiences. Disney also owned Miramax, which was known for its high-class dramas, and Dimension Films, which handled offbeat comedies and genre fare. And of course, they now have Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, and 20th Century Studios. However, Disney had another distribution venture, which was not nearly as well known, and most people might not even realize was theirs: Hollywood Pictures. This label was founded in 1989 in order to beef up the number of movies Disney released each year, and was an extension of Jeffrey Katzenberg's philosophy of producing what he called singles and doubles, movies with modest budgets that, if they hit big, could produce enormous profits. The first Hollywood Pictures release was the horror comedy Arachnophobia, which had quite the pedigree attached. Centered on a town that gets overrun by spiders, the movie was executive produced by Steven Spielberg and was the feature directing debut of Frank Marshall, the producer of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and other 80s hits. However, it only brought in mild box office numbers. Most of Hollywood Pictures' early output also tended to focus on star vehicles in the hope some would click with audiences. Most just sort of came and went from theaters without much public attention. Ever heard of One Good Cop? Or Straight Talk? Surely Blame It on the Bellboy you are familiar with. Not all them movies were washes, though. Hollywood's first major box office success arrived with the thriller The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which grossed $140 million worldwide on an $11 million production budget. The caveman comedy Encino Man was also a modest little hit, and led them to making more movies with Pauly Shore, namely Son-in-Law and In the Army Now. Hollywood Pictures also produced The Joy Luck Club, notable for being the rare American movie with an all-Asian cast, and it ended up pulling in decent numbers. When Disney acquired the distribution rights to the first movie based on a video game, it was released under the Hollywood banner. Unfortunately, that movie was Super Mario Bros. Positioned as a major summer release, the movie proved to be a massive flop due to not reflecting the colorful world of the popular Nintendo games. Things did start to look up for Hollywood Pictures as it took on more prestige projects and signed a production deal with A-list producers Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson. Robert Redford's quiz show, based on the game show scandal of the 1950s, may not have scored big at the box office, but the film did receive an Oscar nomination for Best Picture among other honors. They did score a sleeper hit with the Sandra Bullock romantic comedy While You Were Sleeping, proving to be quite the charmer of audiences. Hollywood's partnership with Bruckheimer and Simpson led to successes like Crimson Tide, Dangerous Minds, and The Rock. There was also the drama Mr. Holland's Opus, which became quite the crowd-pleaser and earned Richard Dreyfuss an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. And while Evita was controversial in Argentina for casting Madonna as Eva Perón, the film adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's stage musical still performed very well. And yet, during this period, Hollywood still had its fair share of major flops. Judge Dredd was one of the more expensive films released by the label, an attempt to start a new franchise that ended up dead in its tracks. This was a film that was not only disliked by critics and audiences, but also the director, screenwriter, Sylvester Stallone, and the creator of the Judge Dredd comics. Oliver Stone's Nixon was hit with controversy for its artistic license in depicting the life of the former president. Enough that Nixon's family complained, the Richard Nixon Library disowned it, and Walt Disney's daughter, Diane Disney Miller, wrote a letter to the Nixons disapproving of the movie. This publicity did not help the over 3-hour film at the box office, although it did score a few major Oscar nominations. There was also Francis Ford Coppola's Jack, in which Robin Williams plays a rapidly aging 10-year-old boy, which was greeted with scathing reviews and disappointing grosses. After The Rock, Bruckheimer's future productions, including blockbusters like Con Air and Armageddon, were released under Touchstone, depriving Hollywood Pictures of a major partner. Things did not get much better for the label after that. The biggest embarrassment was probably the satirical comedy and Alan Smithee film Burn, Hollywood, Burn. In addition to being critically savage, it took in a pathetic $50,000 at the box office. That's right, not million, thousand. The film also put an end to hotshot writer Joe Esteris's career and led the Directors Guild to retire the Alan Smithee pseudonym. Going Fishing, An American Werewolf in Paris, and Deep Rising were other poorly received box office duds released by Hollywood Pictures around that time. One glimmer of hope did come from a ghost story made by an up-and-coming director-writer. M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense was a massive success, becoming not only the label's biggest hit, but also one of Disney's most successful films at the time. Audiences really took to the performances of Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment, that famous line spoken by Osment, and that infamous twist. The Sixth Sense propelled Shyamalan's career and turned him into an Academy Award-nominated filmmaker. Hollywood Pictures was not able to celebrate the movie's box office riches for long. Shyamalan chose to direct his next movies under the Touchstone label, and Disney also made the decision to pare down the division's releases. 2001's Fish Out of Water comedy Just Visiting was Hollywood's last movie for a while, before they were briefly resurrected with a few horror films in 2006 and 2007. None of them did much business, and Disney quietly put an end to Hollywood Pictures. In the end, I think it's obvious why the label did not take off. The whole operation just felt redundant, as all the movies could have easily been released under the Touchstone Pictures banner. It was not able to carve out its own identity over the years, and while it definitely had its fair share of hits and Oscar nominees, they were not enough to offset the large amount of little-profit films produced. Even several years later, I don't see too many people feeling nostalgic towards Hollywood Pictures, like they do other discontinued distributors like Touchstone or Carolco. Even the name is generic. While it produced gems here and there worth celebrating, I think history will ultimately judge it as a curious footnote in Disney history. See you next time.